The Denver Children's Advocacy Center, or DCAC, works to improve the lives of children who've been traumatized by sexual abuse and violence, as well as those who are at high risk, by way of prevention, education, and direct services. Our mission is to prevent abuse, strengthen families, and restore childhood. DCAC specializes in working with vulnerable and fractured families, including single mothers who are struggling to shake bad habits and provide a loving and stable home for their kids.
We had moved here in March from Nevada, and in April my daughter disclosed that my live-in boyfriend had been molesting her. So really for us, through the whole thing, this center was a godsend. And without it, not really sure how we would have progressed from the beginning, yeah.
In family reunification, we begin by working individually and intensively with the parent and the child. Only when each is beginning to heal do we bring them together. Children can heal from trauma, families can be strengthened, and parents can learn how to provide a supportive home for their children. The cycle of abuse and neglect can be broken. DCAC's training program for professionals and community members helps those who work with children to recognize the signs of abuse and find help for traumatized children. Chris was in his 20s before he realized he needed to seek help.
And it's my job to, and one that I fully embrace, to reach out to the community and talk about child sexual abuse from having been a childhood victim myself from ages 12 to 14, and share some of the lessons and learning that I've had from that and what the recovery side looks like. The deep level of concern and at first helplessness about what to do. But through DCAC, I can see that parents then gain a foothold on what it means to help their child recover. So in other words, their child's not doomed. They are not a victim forever. They can recover.
Each year, the DCAC trains nearly 2,000 adults who work with children. The goal is to create a web of caring adults who understand the signs of trauma, its effect on children's behavior, and how to help those kids. What happens today when a child cries out for help? At DCAC, we are the first responders to reports of child abuse in the Denver metro area. Our staff are on call 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, to provide crisis management for child victims and their families, and to support our colleagues. Children and their needs are at the center of our work. Instead of subjecting child victims to multiple interviews that exacerbate their trauma, our partners on the multidisciplinary team come to DCAC to watch just one forensic interview and then work with us to ensure integration of services along a continuum of care. If you believe a child may be in danger, please don't wait. Call the Denver Crisis Hotline at 720-944-3000. Some child victims of sexual abuse are withdrawn. Some are hyperactive and hypervigilant. Some create havoc, and some, like Lauren, are model students.
When I was 8, a trusted neighbor began to sexually abuse me and threaten the lives of my family and myself if I told anyone. I was desperate for help and wanted someone to notice me and ask me questions about how I was doing and how life was outside of school. It would be different if someone asked me questions as opposed to me having to tell them. Desperate for help, but terrified to ask for it, I wrote it all out in a book of poems at school, hoping that my teacher would read it and understand. Instead, she told me I had an incredible gift for writing.
Denver's Safe from the Start, our prevention program at preschools and elementary schools, helps high-risk families protect their children from sexual abuse and violence. We prevent child abuse and foster healthy childhood development by educating and empowering parents, teachers, and other significant adults in kids' lives, as well as the children themselves.
I am a survivor of domestic violence, and I'm also a thriver as a parent of domestic violence with my 4 kids. When my oldest daughter, who was 10 at the time, told me that she wanted to kill herself, then I knew that this wasn't something I could handle on my own, that just being a stronger mom and trying to hold the children together and start a new life simply wasn't going to be enough. I had to find them help, and I began calling. But the DCAC was the only one who called me back to work specifically with them as individuals. And that first phone call began the intake process. I was in with them within the day, and we began the first of what would become 3 years of weekly, individual, age-appropriate domestic violence play therapy for my kids.
Abuse and neglect can be prevented. Children can heal from abuse and neglect if only enough of us care to save them. Every day at DCAC, we see children who've experienced horrific suffering learn to laugh and play again. Please help us to prevent abuse, strengthen families, and restore childhood. Donations can be made at www.denvercac.org.